The morning light filtered through towering windows, casting long golden stripes across the marbled floors of Ashford Heights, an estate so grand it looked carved out of a dream, yet colder than most nightmares. At its center stood Julian Cross, a man whose name alone turned boardrooms silent. A self-made billionaire with the kind of face the media adored and the kind of heart few ever reached. He wasn't always like this, guarded, distant, unreachable. Years ago, he had trusted someone deeply. And when that person betrayed him, they didn't just steal his fortune, they took a piece of him with them. Since then, Julian didn't rely on people. He relied on vaults, legal teams, cameras, and solitude. But even the wealthiest men can't escape loneliness. And no matter how tightly you lock your safe, you can't lock away the need for connection. He had watched her for weeks now. Elena. The maid he never hired directly, just one of many names on a contract from a discreet agency. But there was something different about her. Something quiet. Something honest. She wasn't like the others who came before her, some who stole small things, others who lingered too long in rooms they weren't assigned to clean. Elena moved with care. Not because she feared him, but because she respected herself. That's what intrigued him. So he planned a test. Julian instructed his staff to take the day off. Told his driver to wait outside. And before stepping into his waiting car for an overnight trip, he paused in his private study, the one room in the house untouched by anyone but him. He walked to the corner of the room and spun the dial on his antique safe. Inside, he left stacks of cash, a collection of rare watches, and a small velvet box holding the Cross family ring, an heirloom passed down for generations, never worn, always guarded. And he left it open. The door sat slightly ajar, enough for anyone entering the room to notice. He knew she'd come in. She always cleaned the study around noon. There would be no cameras, no alarms. Just silence and temptation. He wanted to see who she really was. As the car pulled away from the estate, Julian glanced once at the mansion through the tinted glass. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about business deals or board meetings. He was thinking about a maid and a safe left open. At exactly noon, Elena entered the study. She was in her usual uniform, hair tied back, soft-soled shoes making no sound on the polished floors. She began her routine, dusting the windowsills, straightening the rug, adjusting the curtains. Then she turned and saw it. Her breath caught. The safe. Open. She approached it slowly, like it might vanish if she moved too quickly. Her eyes swept over the contents, stacks of crisp bills, luxury watches glinting in the sun, and the little velvet box that looked oddly delicate among all that wealth. She looked away. Then looked again. No one was around. She stepped back. Held her breath. She could walk away. She could pretend she never saw it. Or, she could take something small. Something no one would notice. Maybe just enough to help her pay the late fee on her rent or send to her brother, who was still in rehab. But instead, Elena walked out of the room. She returned moments later with a piece of paper, a roll of tape, and a pen. With careful hands, she wrote something, folded the note, and gently taped it to the side of the safe. Then she pressed the door shut, not too forcefully, but just enough to keep it from swinging open again. She dusted the shelf near it one last time and walked out. The room returned to silence. The kind that holds its breath. Later that night, Julian returned. He moved straight to the study, heart thudding, not from fear, but from something he couldn't yet name. When he saw the note, something shifted in him. It read, "Sir, I believe you may have left this open by mistake. I didn't touch anything. Please lock it properly next time. Things of value deserve care, and trust is one of them. Elena." Julian stood there for a long time, note in hand, staring at the closed safe. For the first time in years, he didn't feel suspicious. He didn't feel guarded. He felt something entirely unfamiliar. He felt seen. And in the heart of his hollow mansion, something warm stirred. The test was over. But a deeper story was just beginning. The morning after Julian found Elena's note, the mansion didn't feel quite the same. The air wasn't warmer, but it was somehow softer. The silence no longer echoed with emptiness, it hummed with something unspoken, something fragile and human. Julian folded the note and tucked it into his wallet. Not because he needed proof, he believed her. Not because he was sentimental, he wasn't. But because it had been a long, long time since someone reminded him that there were still people in the world who chose decency, even when no one was watching. That kind of honesty was rare. And for someone like Julian Cross, it was priceless. He didn't bring it up to her right away. Instead, he watched. Not with suspicion, but curiosity. He noticed how she picked up stray leaves from the marble path before anyone saw them. How she took time to clean the old books in the library, whispering apologies to them as she wiped their worn covers. How she brewed tea in the staff kitchen and left a second cup near the library where he always worked, without ever being asked. She had a quiet grace. Not just in the way she moved, but in the way she existed. One afternoon, as a heavy rain drummed against the windows, Julian did something he never did. He walked into the kitchen, where Elena was cleaning out the lower cupboards, and asked, "Do you like to read?" She blinked, startled, not expecting him to speak directly to her. "Yes, sir," she said softly, standing quickly. He nodded once and walked away. The next day, she found a novel left on the table in the library, its pages crisp, its cover old and worn. No note, no instruction. Just a book. She dusted around it, but didn't touch it. The day after that, another book appeared, this one newer, with a folded corner. She picked it up. It was her favorite story. A coincidence? Or a gesture? The third day, there was no book. Just a blank notebook with a pen beside it. That night, after her work was done, Elena sat in the quiet library and began writing notes in the margins of the old novel she'd read. Thoughts. Feelings. One-word reactions. It became their silent conversation. The books would appear with fresh margins, and she'd return them with scribbles, short messages that said more than entire speeches. She didn't know why he was doing it. But part of her, the part that had been lonely for too long, didn't want it to stop. But behind her quiet demeanor, Elena carried her own heavy past. She had once studied literature at a small college, dropping out when her father passed away and her brother fell into addiction. Their mother had already left years before. With no one else to help, Elena worked herself to exhaustion, juggling jobs, sleeping on friends' couches, even spending nights at a shelter when she had nowhere else to go. Through it all, she never stole. Never cheated. Never took shortcuts. Her dignity was the only thing she could afford to keep. Now, cleaning a millionaire's home wasn't where she thought she'd end up, but it was safe. Quiet. Predictable. Until he started noticing her. One day, after a particularly rainy morning, Julian caught her in the garden. She was fixing the fallen potted plants, her sleeves wet, mud on her hands. He watched from the window. She didn't know he was there. That evening, he called her to the study. "You don't have to fix the garden. That's the landscaper's job," he said. She stood with her hands clasped in front of her, eyes lowered.